All right, let's talk about something that separates the truly great organizations from the ones that just get by: managing project knowledge. Now, this isn't about bureaucracy or filing reports for the sake of it. No, this is a core strategic competency. When you master this, you build a powerful engine for continuous improvement that gives you a massive competitive advantage. So let's break down exactly how you build that engine. I want you to think about this for a second, because we've all seen it. Why do incredibly smart teams keep making the same preventable mistakes project after project? The cost here isn't just money, It's wasted time, it's frustrated people, and it's huge opportunities just squandered. All that hard-won experience from one project just seems to evaporate before the next one even kicks off. How do we finally stop this cycle? So here's our game plan. First, we're going to reframe how we think about knowledge, not as a chore, but as a strategic asset. Then we'll get into its two critical forms. From there, we'll walk through the actual management process. I'll give you the right toolkits to use, and we'll uncover the real engine that drives all this improvement. And finally, we'll talk about how you make this whole framework a reality in your world. Okay, so what is the formal solution to this problem? Well, in the world of project management, there's a process for this, and it's called Manage Project Knowledge. I want you to think of this as the official structured system that an organization puts in place to finally stop reinventing the wheel. It's all about ensuring the lessons of the past are directly fueling the successes of the future. Now, the key to this definition, which comes right from the project management body of knowledge, is how active it is. This is not some passive, end-of-project task where you write up a report that nobody's ever going to read. No way. This is a continuous process. It's about actively using the knowledge you already have right from day one and consciously creating new insights as you go. It's a living, breathing part of how you get work done. Now, to really manage knowledge, we have to understand that it comes in two totally distinct forms. And honestly, this might be the most important concept we're going to cover, because if you only focus on one type, you're missing at least half the picture. And let's be real, probably the most valuable half at that. First up, you've got explicit knowledge. This is all the stuff we can easily write down, document, and stick in a database. Project plans, technical specs, meeting minutes. It's tangible, it's transferable. And frankly, this is the part most organizations are already pretty decent at managing. It's the what. But then there's tacit knowledge. This is the real gold. This is the intuition of your senior engineer, right? The gut feeling of an experienced project manager. It's that collective know-how the team develops. It's the incredibly valuable context and wisdom that just lives inside people's heads. It's not the what, it's the how and the why, and it is incredibly difficult to write down. And this right here, this brings us to the core challenge. See, on one side, explicit knowledge, well, it's easy to share, but its big weakness, it has zero context, which means it's super easy to misinterpret. On the other hand, tacit knowledge is really hard to put into words because it's baked into people's experience. It is loaded with context, but you can pretty much only share it through direct interaction, talking, collaborating, mentoring. A truly world-class knowledge system has to tackle both. You can't just build a database and call it a day. So how does the formal process for all this actually work? Well, it follows a really simple, logical flow. You take your inputs, you apply some specific tools and techniques, and you generate valuable outputs. It's a surprisingly straightforward model for turning raw information into real, usable action. So at a high level, it looks like this. Step 1, you gather your inputs. That's basically everything you already have: project plans, documents, and especially your company's stash of past lessons. Step 2, you apply specific tools and techniques, which we're about to dive into, to actually get people sharing and creating knowledge. And step 3, you generate valuable outputs, the most important one being the lessons learned register, which feeds right back into the organization's collective brain. All right, let's zoom in on that middle step, the tools and techniques. Now, to get really clear on this, we're going to use a classic consultant's trick called MEIS. It just means we're going to break things down into categories that are mutually exclusive, so no overlap, and collectively exhaustive, so we cover all the bases. For us, this means we have two toolkits: a people toolkit for that tricky tacit knowledge, and a systems toolkit for the explicit stuff. Let's start with the people toolkit. This is 100% designed to get at that tacit knowledge. Since this knowledge literally lives in people's heads, the only way to get it out is to create environments where they feel comfortable sharing it. This is where all those so-called soft skills become hard, absolute requirements for success. And these skills are the foundation of that toolkit.
Things like active listening and really good facilitation, these are the primary ways you transfer that deep, contextual know-how from one person to another. Leadership sets the tone. But look, none of this works without trust. People will only share their big insights and, just as importantly, admit their mistakes if they feel psychologically safe enough to do so.
Now for the other side of our MEAS framework, the systems toolkit. So if the people toolkit is all about conversation, the systems toolkit is all about codification. This is how we manage the explicit knowledge, all that information that can be written down, stored, and pulled up later. These are the more tangible, concrete tools in our kit, right? We need structured methods for capturing information. We need a central place to put it, like a lessons learned register or a company wiki. And we need good techniques for finding new information. This is all about making sure that when someone on your team has a question, the answer isn't just stored somewhere, but it's actually easy to find and easy to understand. So we've gathered our inputs, we've applied our toolkits. What do we actually get? Well, the single most important output of this entire process is the lessons learned register. But please, do not think of this as some dusty document you file away. Think of it as the core component, the absolute heart of a dynamic engine for organizational improvement. The official definition here holds the secret. Did you catch that phrase? So that it can be used in the current project. That is a critical distinction. This isn't just about helping out some future team a year from now. It's about learning and adapting in real time. A lesson you learn on a Tuesday should be applied to the work you're doing on Wednesday. Here's a great way to visualize its strategic impact. That lessons learned register, it's like a gear, and with every single new entry, every insight, every mistake, every challenge overcome, it gives the massive flywheel of your company's collective knowledge a little push. Each push makes that flywheel spin a little bit faster, building momentum. This is exactly how the knowledge from one single project makes every single future project smarter and more effective, right from the get-go. So what does a really good entry in this register look like? It needs these 4 parts. First, the situation. Give us the context. What was going on? Second, the impact. What happened because of it? Third, your recommendations. What's the big idea or insight? And finally, the proposed actions. A clear, simple checklist of what to do next to make sure this lesson actually sticks. Okay. It is absolutely critical to remember that this is a framework, not a rigid set of rules you have to follow blindly. The principles we've talked about are universal, for sure, but the real skill, the art of it, is in tailoring the application to the specific size, complexity, and culture of your project and your organization. The big takeaway here is you have to be deliberate about it. A massive, multi-year project needs a very different system than a small 2-week sprint. So before you start your next project, you have to ask your team this one central question. How are we intentionally going to manage knowledge this time around? What specific things are we going to do to make sure information flows and we're constantly learning? And that really brings us to our final thought. Let's make this personal. Forget the theory for a minute and just think about your own work. What is the single most important lesson? That one piece of tacit or explicit knowledge from your last project that absolutely positively must be carried forward to your next one. Answering that question, well, that's the first real step to turning knowledge from a forgotten asset into your greatest strength.